Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today's video is going to be in Revelation chapter 15, so stick with me to hear what I have to say. Alright guys, so Revelation 15, we are back in chronological order. In simplicity, Revelation 15 is the prelude to the bowls, meaning the introduction to the last 7 plagues that are on the Antichrist from Jesus. So in the timeline of things, just a quick snapshot, we are at the very end of the 7-year tribulation. That's how I'm looking at it. Jesus has already come, and we have been resurrected if we've been dead. If we are alive, we are raptured. And I really see us getting our new bodies at this time. I see Jesus actually on the earth. Now, we'll talk all about this in Revelation 19 when I discuss the procession of Jesus. So just so you have a snapshot, though, this is happening after Jesus has gotten us. We are getting our resurrected bodies. I see Jesus being on the earth doing some things, okay? And this is what's happening in heaven. This is the prelude to the bowls. All things happening in heaven. So here we go. Verse 1. Then I, John, saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them the wrath of God is complete. So that pretty is easy to understand. John is seeing these last 7 angels. They've got the 7 plagues, and they are the wrath of God. And after these 7 bowls, his wrath is complete. So that is a good thing. So Revelation 15, verse 2. And I saw something like a sea of glass, mingled with fire. And those who have the victory over the beast, over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, having harps of God. So remember, the last time we saw something like this was way back at the beginning of Revelation. And we did see... It was, how did they label it? I don't have my Bible with me, but it was a sea of glass. There's a sea of glass in front of the throne. I really feel like this is that sea of glass, but at this time it's mingled with fire. And it's funny because when I was studying it this morning, I was like, God, this kind of reminds me of like fireworks. Like, you know how on the 4th of July, like at the very end of the day, there's fireworks and they're going off, and it's just like a sign of like, honor and glory, and like, the final ba-bam, the bam, and so I wonder if like this fire that's mixed in this sea of glass is kind of like, okay, we're coming to a close. Like this is like a good thing. That's just my 2 cents. I never read that. That's just me. And then fire can also represent the 7 spirits of God. I mean, fire can represent a lot, but that was just how I looked at it. But who are the people standing on it? Or it says, it's literally standing on it. So it says people that have victory over the beast. So it's people who have victory over the Antichrist, over his image, over his mark, and over the number of his name. So these people I really see are the saints that have now been raptured, and we are in heaven for a little bit, getting a resurrected body. Now, nowhere in Scripture does it say that once we're raptured, we are in heaven, but it's interesting because we're coming across these different scriptures that pretty much say we are in heaven for a little bit. And so I really see that these are the ones that are raptured. And we'll see in a second that they're singing a song. And so that's how I'm gathering this verse 2 in chapter 15. So then it goes on. Verse 3. they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, "Great and marvelous are your works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, O King of the saints. Who shall not fear you, O Lord, and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. For all nations shall come and worship before you, for your judgments have been manifested." And so it'd be interesting to do some more research on the Song of Moses and the Song of the Lamb. I haven't done that yet. But we can see that part of this song is what we just read. And if we are here during that 7-year tribulation, specifically the last 3.5, and we overcome that Antichrist, we don't get the mark of the beast, we don't worship the image of the beast, we get raptured. You guys, this could be the song that we actually indeed sing. Like, how crazy is that? Literally, you could be singing this song on the sea of glass, mingled with fear. Not fear. No fear. Mingled with fire. You could have fear of the Lord, yes. I just think that's so cool, right? And so it goes on. Verse 5. After these things I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened. Okay, that's a mouthful, right? Again, John sees something. He looks, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened. So what is this? Now, it's interesting because I've been reading Revelation a lot, like over and over and over, and I'm like, this isn't the first time I've seen a temple in heaven. There's a few different times there's this temple in heaven that's talked about. So I've really got curious. I'm like, well, what is this temple in heaven? Like, what's going on there? In a nutshell, how I see this temple is the place of worship in heaven. It's the place of worship in heaven. And like I said, a lot of different activity is happening in that temple. I made this little sheet, and if you want this, you can email me. I'll put my email on the bottom and I can send it to you. But every place in Revelation where it talks about the temple, I put a little blurb in it. And so I'm not going to go through all these right now just because of time. But so far, we have actually seen this temple in Revelation 7 with the great multitude. We also saw it in Revelation 11 with the Ark of his covenant, and we saw it in Revelation 14 when we just did that chapter last week, when the angels and Jesus, like that great harvest is happening, the harvest of the saints and the harvest of the unbelievers. Those angels come from the temple. And then right now we see it. We see the temple, and something's it's opening, and something's going to happen in this temple. And so I thought it was kind of fun to put this together. And so again, just email me and I can send it to you. Now, I'm going to go on a little side note for a second, but then I'll come back, because I feel like when we read the book of Revelation, of course, it's the end time narrative of the end of the age. But I also feel like the Lord just wants to speak to us and reveal things to us. And we can also just have these moments of like, whoa, like outside of the end times, you can still have revelation and insight. And so heaven, let's just talk about heaven for a second. Now, I don't know how many of you think about heaven or whatnot, and maybe not a lot of us really do, because we don't really know what's going on up there, right? But after reading the book of Revelation, you actually now do have a good idea of some of the things happening in heaven. You know, heaven, like I've mentioned before, it's not where you go and you're on some cloud just playing a harp. There's so much more happening in heaven. I feel that part of heaven is like the headquarters for the end times. It's like the command post. A lot of activity is happening in heaven, getting ready for these 7 years, specifically the last 3.5 years. I mean, look at it, like so much that we've already read in Revelation. It's heaven either, validating Jesus or just coming alongside of Jesus and his judgments. And so, you guys, part of heaven is getting ready for Jesus to come back, amongst many other things. But I just thought that was just so interesting. So you can just sit in that for a little bit. All right, so back to Revelation 15. So now we're in verse 6. It says, "And out of the temple came the 7 angels, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure bright linen, and having their chests girded with golden bands." That reminds you of something, doesn't it? Remember way back in the beginning, Revelation chapter 1, it actually talks about Jesus, and he is described in a similar way. All right, so verse 7. "Then one of the 4 living creatures gave to the 7 angels 7 golden bowls full of the wrath of God who lives forever and ever." And so here we go, partnership. We always see partnership in heaven. And so one of the 4 living creatures, comes over and hands the 7 angels 7 bowls of the wrath of God. Verse 8. "The temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no one was able to enter the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed." So again, we get a little snapshot of this temple, right? And no one was able to enter it, or, what did it say? Yeah. "And no one was able to enter the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed." Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly. And so, no one was able to come into this temple during those 7 plagues, meaning outside of the 7 plagues, angels, I don't know, the heavenly groups are able to go in the temple and come out of the temple and go in and come out, but not during the 7 bowls, the last 7 plagues, which is just interesting. I just thinking about that, it's like, well, what is this temple and what's going on out there? And it just makes your wheels start turning, right? Oh, and that's it. Wow. There's only 8 verses in Revelation 15. That's crazy. Well, guys, that was a very simple, quick chapter, right? But there was still a lot inside of it. So my question for you would be a little outside of end times. My question for you is, think about heaven. Think about what you've read so far in the book of Revelation. Think about other parts of the Bible that you have read that talk about heaven. Think about maybe testimonies that you've heard about people having heavenly encounters, and just spend time thinking of heaven and discuss first with Jesus what you think heaven is like and what's going on up there. Ask him, be like, "Hey, Jesus, what's going on up there?" See if he gives you any nuggets. And then discuss that very question. What is heaven like with your friends or your small group? And so with me, as I mentioned, one part of heaven I really believe is like the headquarters of the end times events, right? And then I've also thought of heaven a lot just because both my parents are there. And I've had visions of heaven with my mom and with my dad. And so I really feel like there is schooling in heaven. I believe that believers are still getting educated. So I believe there's part of heaven where you are getting educated. I also believe the New Jerusalem is getting equipped and built. I had a vision of my dad doing landscaping around the New Jerusalem. My dad loved doing landscaping, and so I had that vision of him doing that. And then based on other people, Anna Warner is an amazing prophetess, and she often gets to go to heaven and just see what's going on there. And she's mentioned different things different rooms in heaven. One specific that's coming to my mind, I'm pretty sure it was Anna who said this, was there's like this room where it has like body parts. I know that sounds weird, and I think it was Anna. Don't quote me on it. Someone talked about it, but there's like this storeroom, and it has like body parts, like it has like legs and like arms and things like that. And they're just there just waiting for people on earth to pray into these things, because some people need a new arm or a new leg or whatever, and so like there's storehouses in heaven, and but heaven is waiting for people to pray in these things. So that's crazy, right? And so there you go, guys. That's 2 cents that I've got on heaven and trying to wrap my mind around it. All right, guys, have a great day. God bless. Bye.